This is the first live that I've done for months and months, and I used to do them so regularly, and I dropped out. I stopped doing live broadcasts, and I have got some absolutely amazing clients. I really do, and I'm starting today with talking to Kirsty Gray from Family Wise Limited in Wiltshire. And Kirsty's a people finder. Kirsty finds family members that have been lost. Kirsty finds people that may be the beneficiaries of a how come I can't pronounce beneficiaries this morning? Kirsty finds people who may be the beneficiaries of a will where someone's died with no obvious relatives, and Kirsty does all sorts of things around that. So if you're watching us this morning, or even if you're watching on replay, actually, whichever way around you're watching, then please, if you've got any questions or any comments, pop them in the comments box, either on Facebook or LinkedIn. What I'm just going to do technically is that I'm just going to make absolutely sure that our broadcast has gone live in both places, which it seems to have done so. So that's good. I'll bring it up and I will be keeping an eye on the comments and the notifications. If you're here and if you're watching this, then do me a favor, if you don't mind, and pop something in the comments to let me know that you're here. And if you've got questions for me or Kirsty, then shout out. Ask Kirsty about people finding, ask me about networking, ask anything that you like. Apart from anything rude, but the good ones I'll read out, not wishing to put you under any pressure. Thank you for the heart, whoever has sent the heart already. Hearts are good, comments are good. Some of those comments will show up on the screen and I'll bring them on. I've known Kirsty Gray for about 15 years. I met her through For Networking. I met her through the extended For Networking family. I think the last time I saw Kirsty was actually at a For Networking Christmas party years and years and years ago. What's impressed me, not only, good morning, David Carley, thank you for saying good morning. It's really encouraging to know that people are actually here, by the way, so thank you for anyone who's commenting. What has impressed me has been that Kirsty has built a business around her passion for genealogy, but she's also built a business which I understand now has got in the order of 40 employees in Wiltshire. So she's built a business. Fiona De Silva Adams, thank you very much for saying hello as well. For anyone who's here and liking or commenting, keep it going. We'll be happy to talk to you. I'm going to It's been so long since I've done this. I'm just making sure I press the buttons in the right order. Good morning, Kirsty. I hope the introduction was factually correct, at least.
Yeah, pretty close. We're not all in Wiltshire. That's the only thing that is slightly off. So yeah, we've got 40 people all over the world. So it's not just here in our Wiltshire office. So yeah, we've got people who work for us all over the planet, which is great.
So whereabouts, when you say all over the planet, so Wiltshire obviously being the heart of the known universe, but where else are people based?
Well, our known universe. So we've got 2 in Canada, a couple in America, we've got France, we've got New Zealand and Australia. So basically the sort of colonies are the ones that we need the most, but we've got people that we can call on even if they're not employees all over the world. So the 40 are mostly people that sort of work here in the UK, probably about 25, but then the rest of them are all over the place.
I'm going to go on a little bit. Actually, let me save that question for a second because it will make more sense if I come back to it. So I've described you as a people finder, and on here it says people finding as well on the screen in front of me.
People finding magician.
People finding magician. Tell me what it is that you actually, or I know what you actually do. Tell the people who are watching or listening what it is that you actually, or what it is that Family Wise does, and what it is that Kirsty Gray does these days as part of Family Wise.
There are so many different things, Steph, to be honest with you. So basically, I call myself a people finding magician because we can find people whatever the reason. So the craziest is probably finding someone's Latin dictionary. I kid you
Really?
not. Somebody gave, yes, this is when we were in the old office, not the current office that we're in here. He walked in and this gentleman said, I gave my Latin dictionary to a lady back in 1960 something when I was at university in Manchester, and I'd really like it back because it had like a, little, not a plaque, but the kind of, this was given to so-and-so in whatever year for whatever reason, and he wanted it back. So we found the dictionary. But that's not a normal thing, but we normally find people for, as you said in the intro, a lot of the work we do is inheritance. So perhaps when somebody dies without leaving a will, or with a will, either way. And we work with a lot of local councils, mortuaries, hospitals and things like that, where somebody has literally died yesterday, last week, a couple of weeks ago, and they don't know who the next of kin are. And there's somebody that needs to be sent off to pastures new, and maybe there's an estate, maybe there isn't. So sometimes we work literally on a case of, we're probably not going to earn any money, but that doesn't matter. But sometimes we do get money out of it. So a lot of the stuff we do is actually pro bono.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. So a lot of the work that we do, we just literally pick up from the local councils, hospitals, mortuaries and stuff like that. And there might not be anything in it, but that person's son, daughter, sister, whatever, they still deserve to know, and that person's got to be sent off to pastures new. So yeah, a lot of the time it's free.
Because that happens. Families become estranged for all sorts of reasons.
Of the time.
Because I was going to say, because you've talked about care homes and mortuaries and so on, I was going to say it sounds morbid. But then when you describe what you actually do, then it doesn't sound as if there's a happy ending, but it must be closure for people. It must be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a chap this morning. We had a courier pop into the office this morning because we're on the high street in Carn in Wiltshire. And we had a courier come in at 9:10 saying, I've come to pick up some ashes.
Wow.
For most people, that's not normal. For me, it's very normal. So up we popped and picked up Terry from next door, the room of requirement, because we're a bit Harry Potter crazy here. So everything's named after Harry Potter. So popped up and picked up Terry, and then I phoned his brother Pete, who I discovered because we were asked to find him. We knew where John was. John's in America. There's 3 brothers. So Terry's passed away, Pete's in Chester, and John's in America. And nobody could find Pete, apart from us.
Wow.
Had a very challenging life. I literally called him this morning. We've tried to contact him so many times to say, we need to get Terry's ashes to you. What's the best day? And he was just going to bed at 9:20 this morning. He doesn't work.
Right.
And he said, I've just been walking my dog overnight, out walking the dog. I said, you need to be ready to sign for this parcel. That's fine, not a problem, he said. And that's him having half the ashes and the other half going to John.
Okay. I mean, that's
Mad,
again,
isn't it, really?
No, there's a few things in that really interest me about your business, because I was an estate agent for 20 years. We always had high premises because we wanted people just to be able to walk in and talk to us. And you've just mentioned there that you've chosen a high street premises, and I'm guessing, as opposed to a serviced office or something on the outskirts of town, I'm guessing that there's a thought process, a logic behind why you've chosen a high street premises. And just so that you know, Tony Leake loves the term people finding.
Amazing.
Put it up on here. So thank you. Anyone
you,
else, just whilst I briefly pause there, anyone else who's got any questions or any comments, keep them coming. I'll read them out and bring them up on screen. So yeah, getting back to that point. So for a business which could easily be hidden away, you've chosen a high street premises then?
Yeah, so originally, as you know, Steph, but obviously people watching won't know, I literally set up the company from home. I left a teaching job. I'd been teaching for 10 years. done a multitude of different things, which I won't bore everyone with today because there's not enough time. But I taught for 10 years and then decided to leave my teaching job and set up the business and just see if it was a possibility, because I've always loved doing genealogy, people tracing, for whatever reason. Latin dictionaries wasn't in my armory before, but just the general stuff. And I just thought I'll just try and see if it's a possibility. And I just literally set up from home. And then in 2016, I had a couple of people that were sort of subcontracting that were on sort of commission base only, research-wise. And I had an admin assistant who came in 4 hours a week and used to file on my landing at home, literally. And then I had a filing cabinet in the spare bedroom. And I had this guy who still works for me now, so we're talking 9 years ago, said, I'd like to come and work for you over the summer on a voluntary basis. I'd like to come and work in your office. And I went,
wow,
I don't have an office. I don't have one. So we started to create an office at home, my home. And so we had the East Wing and the West Wing, otherwise known as the kitchen, dining room and the conservatory. And we had a couple of the people that were subcontracting actually were local. So we started to sort of create a team, an actual team, like not a virtual team, but an actual team. And over that summer, we started looking at an office space, not the one that we're in now. We wanted this one. It was empty back when we moved in 2016. It was too big. I mean, it's three and a half stories, the half, if we've got time, I'll bore you with. But it's 3.5 stories, and there's no way back in 2016 that we could have afforded it, given the place that the business was in back then. But we had a smaller office down at the bottom of town and just started creating a team, still subcontractors. I employed my first PA over a shelf in Tesco's. I wouldn't recommend it. It didn't go that well. Yeah, she wasn't the best. But yeah, recruitment's got a lot better since. That was 9 years ago. So so moved in here in 2018 on the high street. And yeah, we've got, as we said before, staff 40 people all over the world. We've got 16 desk spaces here. So yeah.
And do people literally walk into the office and ask you stuff?
Yeah. So we've also got a mobile printing service. So we've made ourselves a bit of a sort of a hub for the local area. So it's not just family history. Are you interested in finding somebody? We've got a mobile printing service, and it's even extended to like laminating and all sorts of different things. Because there's no one. We're in a small market town. It's not huge here. So we're providing a service, and then people go, oh, and what is it you do? And we have quite a lot of different initiatives here as well. So we have the duck race.
Yeah, I live in a small town as well.
Yeah, so we have the Calm Duck race, and we also had, because we used to have Harris's pork factory back in up until the 80s. It closed in the 80s. That was the main hub of where people would be employed here. And so we had the pig parade. So we have pot a pig. So we've decorated a pig, and we had pigs in all the different offices down literally down the high street and all sorts of different places. And I actually met a couple who literally, they don't live here. Their daughter lives here. And they just popped in, and I call them my second parents now, because when they walked in and one of my staff said, oh, are you Kirsty's parents? So we've just kind of coined it as they're my second parents, and they take me out for coffee and lunch when they come up. It's lovely. It's a really nice place to work.
See, okay, so a couple of things. For anyone familiar with this country and Daisy May Cooper, for anyone who lives in a small town in Oxfordshire, Gloucestershire or Wiltshire, I have to tell you that it is ridiculously accurate. And we do actually, in the village up the road, Hayley, we do have a scarecrow competition, and you've obviously got you've got a pig parade in Cannes. So this country, there's far more fact in it about the small towns in this part of the world than people recognise. When I was an estate agent, particularly towards the end of my career, when I was actually on High Street in Witney, I used to allow local clubs, societies, organisations to photocopy for free. And part of that was giving back to the community.
Exactly.
But at least 50% of it was people would say, do you know what we're thinking of selling in a year? Do you fancy popping out and giving us a valuation at some point? And it would be, yeah, that's how you get in marketing. That's how you get people over the threshold.
Exactly.
You make it attractive for them to come. I think that's sorry if you don't mind me saying so, but that's a really clever move on your part to make. I've used the word morbid a couple of times, but to get people over the threshold and actually talking to you.
Yeah.
So this is something that I wanted to ask you about. This came from a genuine passion for the subject. And I'm a big devotee of Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk says, look yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, what do I want to do every day for the rest of my life? Do that. You've done that by the sound of it.
Yeah, I've been doing family history research on my own side of things for 40 years. That makes me sound very old. No. But I started when I was in not even before I was a teenager, certainly a long time before I could drive. So yeah, I started with my mum because my granddad, my mum's father, left a family history and lots of documents when they moved to Tenerife when I was 5, I think, 4 or 5. And so I was surrounded by documents and photos and things like that. And he'd drawn out in pencil on a very old piece of paper, as we would look at it now, very old-fashioned. And he'd done it obviously pre-internet, pre-computerization, pre-ancestry, and all the online commercials that we know about now. And he'd just written down what he'd asked people about, and that's what I was left with, or my mum was. So we started when I was a child, and then I went to Reading University. It's going to sound very odd. I don't know if you know this stuff. I did a chemical physics degree in French.
Wow.
As you do.
Sorry, I was with you through chemical physics degree, but when you said in French, so how come you ended up? What? Sorry, why? Now my head's spinning.
I didn't think I told you that before. Yeah, so I went to Reading University because I've always been sort of mathematically minded, not particularly a linguist, but I thought, well, put something else on the side and see where it takes me. So I did chemical physics and then spent a year in French-speaking Canada. So 4 years straight masters, and then went into accounting for a while. I've worked in care a lot, so I've got a lot of stuff that actually really helps me in my day-to-day job. Maybe not the chemical physics, but or the French sometimes. But in terms of like the sort of everything else that I've sort of put together over the years, not that I really planned that this was going to be the end point, but it's kind of brought me to this point and allowed me to be the best managing director I can be, because I've got the compassion, I've worked in care, I've got the mathematical skill to work out that side of things in terms of estate accounts. So there's a lot that, although I didn't plan it, it's worked out really well. So I did chemical physics in French, and was in Reading for a while, and then moved here in 2011. Was still teaching, taught for 10 years. And again, just seen Con pop up on the side, good friends of mine. Thanks, Con. Just moved here in 2011, and was still teaching back in, actually near you, Steph. I was teaching in just outside of Wallingford.
Okay.
So not too far away. And I was commuting there all the time. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to see if I can do this. So like you say, it was something I was really genuinely interested in. And just in 2013, thought, oh gosh, I have no one to support me. I've got no one to pay my mortgage if I can't pay it. Why not? And here we are, 12 years later.
I think that's incredibly inspirational. And
perhaps crazy, some people might say.
It's inspirational, Kirsty, and I'll explain why. Because I have children aged between 21 and 28, both my sons and my stepchildren.
Yeah.
People think they have to have it all worked out. By the time they're 21, well, you have to start thinking about your options for exams when you're in your mid-teens. All of this stuff happens. I I left estate agency age 37. That had been my career since I left school. Didn't know anything about networking until age 37, and here I am now. And I don't know what age you were when you came away from, you may have dropped it into conversation, sorry if I missed it, but when you came away from all of the other stuff, it sounds frankly as if you spent a decent proportion of your adult life getting to where you wanted to be, rather than it being hugely planned and strategized when you were 14, by the sound of it. Doesn't sound like it.
I don't do planning, and every coach I've ever worked with has gone, Kirsty. So, you know, for example, when we did move into this building on the high street, I didn't plan whether I could actually afford it. I didn't plan anything really. I mean, I planned moving in, I planned getting the plastering done and the carpets done and God knows what else, because it was horrendous. It was literally a derelict building.
Okay.
We don't own it, we lease it, but it had been empty for about 3 years-ish. But I didn't plan if I could afford it. I just did it. which every coach I've ever worked with has just frowned on me and gone, you need to plan, Kirsty. No, I just make it work.
I really like that. That wasn't where I was expecting this conversation to go. So if you don't mind me asking then, in terms of, so you've gone from having a passion for this to having a back bedroom business that does this to now, you know, having 40 people spread across the world working for you.
Yeah.
Have you assembled other people in the team who do some of the planning and some of the working stuff out then? Okay. So
really?
I'd be really interested to see, to ask you then how it's grown, because that's something else. You say that coaches have frowned at you. When I first started going networking, bearing in mind, when I first started going networking, I was in my early mid-30s at the time. Yeah. But someone criticized me for not having an exit strategy. And it strikes me that it is put upon us that we need to have all of these things in place to have a proper business. Yeah. You've grown this organically by the sound of it. I'd be really interested to see.
Yeah, completely, wholeheartedly.
How it happened.
I think I've always been somebody who is a great reflector. I'm not somebody who plans necessarily, so I'm not like a forward thinker necessarily, but I think I'm a great reflector. So when something goes wrong, I'm not going to say I dwell on it, because I don't, but I really reflect on it and make sure that something like that wouldn't happen again. So we had a few problems in 2023. I won't go into too much depth, but we had a few people that we shouldn't have employed that weren't doing a great job and really screwed things up on a monumental scale. And we've had to keep dealing with that for the last 2 years. But I've looked back at how I recruited those people and the management of those people and made those changes. So, you know, we've got better appraisal systems in plan. We've got better recruitment in planning. So I don't employ them over Tesco's. That was years ago. It wasn't one of those. But, you know, it's just the management and making sure and keeping on top of things. And just, I think it just changes the way you look at things. And for a lot of time, I won't lie, it was difficult to trust people, because I trusted both people that I lost and had really made a mess. And I think that took a lot of time to build that trust back up. But I've got an amazing senior leadership team, absolutely astonishing. I mean, one of them, just as an example, we employed her age 17 as an office junior. Literally picked her up from the local sixth form as an office junior. She then worked for us during summers and stuff like that. She then went to do a law degree. We created a remote job for her. First remote job. We'd never had anyone work remotely, and she was uber successful. And I thought to myself, towards the end of the degree, I thought, I'm just waiting for the time where I'm going to lose her, because you're not going to go through a law degree and then come back and work here.
Sure.
Oh, yes, you will.
Okay.
She created a role. She created a role for herself that wasn't there before.
Wow.
And sold it to me. And she's on my senior leadership team. She's 21.
Right.
And she's worked for 4 years. And she's amazing.
I'm so incredibly glad we did this conversation, because so much of this, look, we've had the comments from the wonderful Lauren, who
Yeah, I've just
is
seen that.
reassured because she switched careers at age 30.
Yep.
When you've still got so much time, Lauren, you've still got time to have
Yeah,
another
definitely.
couple of careers as well.
Yes. Or
And
maybe the
Tony,
current one's going to work out and she doesn't have to. Who knows?
Lauren's doing brilliantly. What she's doing now will work out, I'm sure, but Kirsty's point stands. Yeah, so many people don't have a life plan, as Tony Leake says, and that's and the other thing that I've just found really inspiring is your lack of dwelling on what people would consider, or what some people would consider, the failures. So you've learned from
Just,
the recruitment mistakes
yeah.
and moved on from that,
Yeah.
which could have floored a lot of people, frankly. But you decided to learn from that, and not just spit on your hand and agree with someone over Tesco's that you're going to employ them, but actually put a bit more of a process in place.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing that we found is that, because in the role that I have, in terms of being not necessarily a managing director, I don't mean, but in terms of managing cases, it's incredibly hard to find good case managers. So we had, and we still have, a young genealogist experience that we've rolled out to 18 to 30s. So they can have an experience that's all paid, and they can spend 3 days with us in the office. Obviously, with an evil, wicked plan that if they're good, we might ask them if they want to join the team.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so we've got 2 people joining us this summer. One who's actually a business owner herself, but wants to, hate the word, but pivot and come out of that role and actually work for somebody else, because I think she's sort of done what she wants to do and just wants to move on. And another young person who's working for charities at the moment. So yeah, 2 people who are going to spend 3 days with us, learn what we do and figure out if they're the right fit for us. Because what we've worked out over the time with bad recruitment is that we need to find the right fit for us. And a lot of what we need is the dynamic, the motivated, we're very, not surprising, staff, gregarious team.
Yeah, so, that I can imagine.
Yeah, funny that. So yeah, the last appointment we had was a case manager, brilliant, very little research experience, but we could just tell that her vibe and her dynamic would fit. And she literally dances around the office, and that just fits with us. And it's just that coming in, being energetic, leaving any eels at the door. And just that dynamic is really what we need. So as long as people have got that dynamic, we can train people to do anything. I've always said, I can't train someone to do what we do family history wise and like people chasing. Yeah, we can. We can teach them that. We can't teach them to be nice people.
There is an expression which I'll get wrong, isn't there, that skills can be learnt, but attitude is irreplaceable.
100%, yes.
Something like that. I think that is really important, and I love that. And again, I don't know how much time you spend listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, but a lot of what he talks about is you hire people fast, but you actually do, for everyone's benefit, need to fire fast as well if they're just not the right fit, because that's not fair on anyone. And sometimes you simply don't know until someone's in the office. So doing what you're doing for young people and actually bringing them in for a few days gives you a much better chance of getting to know people as well.
And even not just necessarily case managers. I mean, one of the greatest appointments we've had in the last year or two, we literally had a CV. We didn't have a job, but Sal just sent a CV in, and she was just like, I know I've missed the opportunity to get an admin role, but I'm doing an HR course and I'd really like to see if there's any opportunities with you. I know I've just missed one. And I invited her in. She spent a couple of hours with us, and we created a role that wasn't even there because I knew that she would fit us. And she's just lost her dad 6 weeks ago, and we've provided all the support, and she's uber, she gave me a hug this morning. She's just like, I can't believe I've got such a supportive boss, blah, blah, blah. And it's just wonderful. And that's what I really just want to foster, because I think, a lot of corporates don't have that. I've got a member of staff over in Canada, actually, who his son was assaulted 2 years ago, and had just gone through a really quite serious court case, but it's taken a long time. And he works part-time for us and part-time for a corporate that I won't mention, but they've been not at all supportive. Yeah, I was on the end of the phone yesterday, and he was just like, I can't believe how supportive one person and one company, a small, let's face it, small company, can be.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important to me, that we just build that dynamic, that good vibe, that, I mean, we call it the family wise family. That's what we say, because that's what we are.
It sounds like it. It really does sound like it. And I think that, again, is missing the real empathy.
Yes.
Along with commercialism, the two can go hand in hand, but real empathy in employment. For those of you who are watching and have only just joined us, I'm talking to Kirsty Gray from Family Wise in Wiltshire. Kirsty, I'm really enjoying the conversation, and I'm forgetting to do my interstitials as a result. The bit that I need to say is that if you have just joined us and have got any questions, particularly about finding people, about finding the heirs to a will, or about growing a business, or about networking, if you like, pop them in the comments, whichever direction the comments are for you, whether you're watching us on Facebook or LinkedIn, and even if you're watching the replay later on, still pop your questions in the comments, because I will, I'll tag Kirsty and we'll come back and reply to them. I think people are really interested in what you do. Have you got any anecdotes? What are the interesting cases that you've dealt with, apart from finding an Latin dictionary, which we talked about earlier on? But what interesting cases can you talk about to give us an example?
I mean, obviously, won't name names. But yeah, I mean, just to give you a couple of scenarios, really. We work, as I mentioned previously, for those people that have just joined us, we work with a lot of councils and hospitals and things like that. So we've got a referrer, again, won't name names, who literally, as soon as somebody has passed away in their area, will just get straight on the phone. So I had one, I'm going to say probably about 18 months ago, and we didn't know the name of the gentleman at the time, but the person who I work with said, I've got a case which I think is going to be the hardest one we've done yet. And I was just like, oh gosh. And he said, I've heard that there's somebody who's been found deceased in his flat, and he's been there for 9 months. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. And so, long story short, this gentleman was identified fairly quickly. I mean, how, I don't know, because I've had cases more recently where I've had to do DNA and heavens to Murgatroyd, other things, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But yeah, he obviously the people that he rented the property from knew that it was him, and he had 2 sons. Yikes. That's not an easy conversation.
No,
really not an easy conversation. And I often say, I mean, we work on a lot of competition cases. So some of the work that we do is on the government unclaimed estates list. So we're in competition with other firms, but this one wasn't. But I often say, this has got Family Wise written all over it, i.e. it needs the compassion, the ethics, the honesty that we can provide, that some of the bigger firms, some of the more long in the tooth firms, if I can put it that way, they've been around a little bit longer, but they're built on different morals. So this one completely had us written all over it. And one of his sons just completely took control and said, yeah, work with you, Kirsty. I was in contact with him all the time. Just, yeah, we got his funeral sorted. We paid it up front because the bank wouldn't pay the money out. And we managed to get him cremated, and they had a family sort of service with the family as well. So yeah, it's not easy. I have hard conversations every day. I mean, yeah, the family history side of it, easy peasy, but this side of things is not easy at all. I had a conversation with a guy Friday of last week. He's a personal trainer, and his father's passed away. He hadn't seen him for years, but I still have to do that kind of, when did you last see him? Do you know his date of birth? Can you confirm it? Yeah, it's definitely the right guy. And now we're having to help him sort out a Suzuki car in, I can't remember where it is, anyway, a council somewhere, bank accounts, and send him on to pastures new. It's not easy. It's really not easy.
No, I can imagine. Like we said right back at the beginning, families become estranged, and there is a Channel 4. There's a Channel 4 film somewhere about someone who was in their flat for 2 years. It actually interviews their friends who were just like, oh yeah, noticed she hadn't been at the pub for a few weeks, and two years had passed, which you can see can happen with some people. I mean, that's it sounds like really technical. Is that why you've got people in this country and all over the world then?
I think the all over the world bit is just because I was aware when I first set up the company, I thought, right, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it ethically. And I wanted to make it so that we could work as quickly as possible and effectively as possible. So when I've taken on people abroad, it's basically because I need them to work when I don't really want to, because I'm asleep, hopefully. So it means that we can keep going 24/7. And it means that we've got the technical skill in different countries. So for example, Nick and Mel, who work in New Zealand and Australia, there's access to records that we just simply can't have here. I've got a case that we're working with a solicitor in Bath at the moment that our French researcher is working on. I wouldn't have a clue. We wouldn't have a clue as a business here in Wiltshire how to do that. So it's just making sure that we've got capacity to do whatever any client or any person who's passed away, their estate needs.
Yeah, because I'm thinking that because a decent amount of my dad's family, particularly, are now Canadian. Moved to Ontario in the 1970s and 1950s, and some of Sharon's family live in Sydney. So I suppose yes, there must be people all over the world who whose lineage traces different countries.
Yeah, just simply tracing current addresses is in some countries easy, but in a lot of countries, well, funnily enough, the two you've just spoken about, Canada and Australia, is very difficult. We always say that Canada is a place that genealogy goes to die because their laws are just so strict. so strict. Yeah, so tracing anybody over there is incredibly difficult. So that's why we've got two people over in Canada that can help us out on the ground.
And very finally, because this is one of those conversations that I'm enjoying so much, I'm letting it rattle on.
It's okay, it's fine.
I'd be really interested to hear, because we met through networking, because we are still involved through networking as well. And I know you still go networking with your sort of business. How has that proved beneficial? Networking events generally, and the networking that you do on social media as well. How has that worked for you?
I think the difficulty with me is I'm so niche. So it's not something that's going to pop up every week. You know, I'm not like the electrician that's in your networking group that you see every week and you've got an electrician need that you can go, oh, here's a referral. But I have had two, actually both people had already left the networking groups that we were in at the time when we met. But I've had two people that have had people close to them pass away without leaving wills with a property, both in Trowbridge, which is just down the road. And yeah, so I mean, probably the two biggest referrals I've had, although I met them through networking in the first place, were when we were all out of those networks. But I think because I'm so niche, as you know, Steph, I'm memorable in many ways, mostly good, I hope. But I think it's just a case of you're not going to need a Kirsty every day, but when you need a Kirsty, you know that Kirsty's there.
Yes, there's a guy in networking who talks about that quite a lot, of being at the front of people's minds, because that's why DFS advertise on telly every night, even though we don't all buy sofas every night. You need to be there when someone wants you, when someone needs your services.
Yeah. And there's the easy bits of just like, oh yeah, you know, if you want to find your old teacher and tell her thank you so much for believing in me when I was a child. I'm now doing this and that and the other, and they were a little bugger when they were at school. Those are the easy ones. You know, if someone wants to do a bit of family history, that's also easy. But the big golden goose, call it what you will, you know, the big cases, generally, they're not going to come every day, but when you have them, I mean, I was a co-executor on someone's will for my accountant, who I met through networking. And we've just gone through dealing with Jim's estate. And I don't think Neil would have ever asked me for that if we hadn't met through networking. Not that he's just my accountant, but we'd met through networking. And we've just gone through 1,000 things that he knew how to do and 1,000 things that he didn't.
Okay. And is that something that you offer then? Do you stand as executors of wills as well?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I've got that skill set. So I can absolutely help with all that. I mean, there's so much involved in dealing with estates. You know, if someone's got a property, probably most of the people that are listening here don't know that if you've got a property that's empty, you need unoccupied house insurance.
There you
Who
go.
knew?
Okay.
Who knew? You know, there's so many different things. You know, you have to get inheritance tax sorted. You know, who knows about nil rate band? Probably not a lot of people.
No.
You know, and I'm not legally qualified. I'm not a solicitor, but there are many things that I can advise upon and assist with on that kind of side of things. And yeah, that's what we do, and we love it. Yeah, we've got a room of requirement next door full of personal possessions. We scan all the photographs. We've got canvases downstairs on the wall of a lot of people whose estates we've dealt with because we want to remember them. They're a part of our tapestry.
At the end of my estate agency career, and for those of you who are watching, we'll be wrapping this up in 2 or 3 minutes. So if you've got any outstanding questions, go ahead in the comments. At the end of my estate agency career, I specialised in probate properties. Had a good relationship with lots of solicitors and banks, and we were often given big houses in West Oxfordshire where the owner had died. And there were lots of things that families didn't know, but very often family members had been made the executor, and we've got an aging population. So if someone dies in their 80s or 90s, their immediate relatives are often in their 70s, and you're suddenly giving an elderly person actually quite a big job to do. And things that came up. People who had done equity release on their house was one of the most troubling ones for the family, because the company would often effectively repossess the house after someone had died, and change the locks because they now owned it, and that would take families by surprise quite often. It always strikes me that giving family members the sole responsibility of being the executor is much more of a responsibility than people, and a technical issue than people know it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is people don't realise that if someone passes away, and sometimes this is a difficult decision to make, but if you are made executor and you're not in a position that you actually are able to carry that out, you can renounce it.
Okay, I didn't know that.
No, so we've had probably about 5 in the last year where people and solicitors, not just individuals, solicitors have gone, no, not doing it.
Wow.
Yeah, because the estate's not worth enough for them. So yeah, if it's not worth enough, they're not going to get enough out of it, then they'll just say, no, we're not interested. So yeah, we've had, I think 5 in the last year, 5 or 6, where executors have said either I can't, I won't, or I don't want to. Yeah, one of those things. And you can just literally turn around and just do a renunciation and just walk away. And then basically there's a will that someone has to jump in the middle. So someone's got to be the administrator in place. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but it's a really fascinating world to work in.
Do you still love it as much as you did?
I love it every day, Steph. It's hard. I won't lie. Every day is hard, and every day you go home. And sometimes I sit on the sofa at night with the cats, and I'm just like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be a complete roller coaster. And like I said, you know, some of the ones where I have to tell people their dad or their mum or whoever's passed away, it's not easy. And there's times when I've had to break news to people and I've burst into tears in the office. And every time I say to the team, the minute that doesn't happen is the minute you shut me out the back door and you don't let me back. Because if I don't care, then I'm not going to get affected like that. And it's really important that I care enough to react. And I do have those tough ones, and the team have had some tough ones as well. But if you don't give a monkeys enough, you don't care enough. You don't, do you know what I mean? You're not going to react in that way if you don't care.
That's the clip that I'm going to use to promote this going forward, because that was amazing. And what I've loved about this conversation, what I've loved, and I hope that the viewers and listeners have too, is just how it's flowed, Kirsty.
I'm just really passionate about what we do, Steph. Like, you know, who wouldn't love doing this job? And the team love it. Like, if I could get my team up from downstairs and they would tell you the same thing.
Oh, let's work out a way of getting that.
We'll totally do that.
Let's genuinely talk about that.
Yeah.
Kirsty, thank you. For anyone who's been watching or listening, if you don't already follow Kirsty Gray, then go and follow her and follow Family Wise as well. You'll find those linked to on her profiles. Kirsty, thank you very much indeed for spending time with us. I'm going to click the end stream button now.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.